Hi, I'm Katie, and this is the Free Art and Design School podcast, web series, whatever. And I have my friend Chalen here today. Not here today, actually, from Paris, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Sure. So I'm Chalen. I'm not sure whether I fit into the educator or artist categories, but I'm a UX designer by trade. I do some other art for fun. And yeah, I'm living in Paris, but met Katie while I was living in San Francisco for a few years.
I think you certainly have hosted like collage parties and instructional events. So I feel like you dabble in the education part, and you're certainly an artist. Um, I was curious if you could talk about how you became an artistic person, because it feels like you have so many different artistic interests that you've pursued over the years.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know if I was ever not interested in art. But at the same time, I don't know that I've ever like been so into art that it's become like a huge identifier or like profession for me. Um, I think it would be really exciting someday, but I guess just ever since I was a kid, like you're just consuming things and you're kind of daydreaming about doing them yourself. Especially around like I was reading a lot of books as a kid, and then I was writing stories and like writing little books with my friends like during recess in elementary school. And so I think just, you consume art and you're inspired to create it. Um, I saw that you've like published what, at least one book, right?
I haven't published anything. I've definitely written a
Oh,
couple
okay.
of books.
You've written.
I
Okay.
like am way too terrified to like send it to a publisher and have to edit it. I don't like reading my own work very much. But yeah, writing I understand. You're also interested in like game design and like all sorts of other like comics and stuff like that, which is really cool.
Yeah, as a kid, I was making games for my like younger cousins and younger sister to play, just out of Legos. Like we had like a huge
Mm.
Lego set, so I would kind of, you play like house and stuff with kids, but I would like take it much further, and there would be a lot of rules. And like, we were just like playing full like role-playing games like with little Lego guys kind of before I knew what a role-playing game was. And yeah, I think I've always kind of held that. I grew up like sitting on stacks of phone books to like play on the computer. And so I naturally kind of got into like creating some simple video games and stuff, especially just as like school projects. So I think, yeah, I've dabbled in everything that I've enjoyed, I guess.
Why do you think kids are so much more freely creative and less self-conscious than adults are? What do you think it is about society that kills our inherent drive to play?
I don't know. I mean, I think that, like, for one, you're really right about just kids being so creative. Like, it's insane. And I really forgot about how insane it was until I was like volunteering at 826, which is like a collective in San
Mm.
Francisco. It's like teaching literacy to kids. And you're like having them write a story collaboratively. And it's like just every single thing they came out up with was like so off the wall and just a thing that I feel like I never could have come up with ever. And like they're just coming up within 2 seconds. I think their minds are just like, they haven't learned enough about how things work, like how the universe works, so they're not constrained by it.
Mhm.
There's something weird about, for me, like creativity comes with constraints.
Yeah.
Like a lot of actually my like favorite art to make is like very constrained art. It's like as a UX designer, I'm like working with like we have to, this has to be something that's actually feasible. This has to be something that customers like. This has to be something this person likes. We have to use this software, blah, blah, blah. Collage, it's like I do collage with things I find. And so it's like I have to make like this thing at this size work. I recently got into I'm not even remembering the right name, but like lithography.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's again like very constraining. It's like you have this material that's like really weird, and it's like you have these constraints. But then going back to being a kid, it's like you have no constraints at all, and yet you're like really, really creative. So I don't understand that because I don't think that. I could work with just like a blank canvas like a kid does.
Yeah. Well, it sounds
It's
like art for you is more about like puzzles and problem solving and challenging yourself. So maybe that's it. Maybe it's like you just need something that like is entertaining to you and more open, like no constraints is not challenging or interesting because it's not like a puzzle. It's like too open of a puzzle for you, maybe.
Yeah, it's a really generous way to put it. Like I think that without constraints, I wouldn't find it easier. I would find it harder, you know? So like I do find that like constraints, it's like someone else is doing part of the work for me,
Yeah.
like getting me set up, and then I'm just kind of driving it home. Um,
There's a lot that's nice about that. I remember one of my roommates in art school, I would be complaining about how limited the instructions for our homework assignments were. And I was like, oh, I hate constraints. Like, I just want to do anything. And she was like, literally, if we didn't have rules, I would not be able to make anything. And I think that after many fights like that, it gave me pause and was like, oh, like everyone works differently. And like, that's sort of why I'm interested in doing a project like this, which is like sort of a more open format for learning. Like everyone learns differently, and so we can sort of like explore different ways of teaching that are, more helpful than just having like one professor in front of 30 students and then having to like cater to every single individual, person's views or likes or whatever within an hour. Like with this, it's like the open internet allows everyone to sort of pick and choose the ways they want to learn. So that's that's my idea. I'm sort of wondering, what was your educational journey? How did you become the UX designer living in Paris that you are today?
sure. So it was either like I could start with Legos and make it a lifelong journey, or to make it short, I was in college for international affairs because, like you, I was a debate kid, and debate kids are, have dreams of being a lawyer, dreams of being an ambassador, that kind of stuff. But then I kind of like I was getting a little disillusioned with that career path for various reasons. I wound up having a friend be like, oh, hey, like you like computers, like you should take this certificate like while you're in college. And so I took this certificate at our journalism school. It was like a basic like web development and design certificate. I really liked it. They launched a master's program the next year. And so I was in the first cohort of that master's program.
Cool.
I never knew that like product design or UX design existed as paying jobs. And so like to as some summer reading before taking my master's, I read a few different books. One was by Don Norman, and that just kind of showed me like, hey, actually, like everything that he's saying like really clicks with me and really makes sense to me. And I was kind of surprised that like that's not immediately obvious to everyone.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, like maybe this is something that I'm like decently talented at and something I could pursue. And then the master's gave me kind of like I don't know, the confidence to pursue it. Because I don't think that you necessarily need a degree to go into the field that I'm in. But it's like without that, I wouldn't have felt as legitimate. I moved to San Francisco on a whim from Georgia originally. Went to school in Georgia, all that. And yeah, I wanted to like move to the big city. Uh, I thought that San Francisco was a big city. It's not. It is actually, though, I will say the perfect size city. But like when I first got there, I was expecting like, I thought it was like between that and Manhattan for me.
Right.
But I chose SF for the weather. I'm really happy that I did. And yeah, I just found like random jobs at different startups throughout the years. I found a job in Paris after 5 years in San Francisco, and yeah, I wound up moving out here with my partner and just wanting to kind of explore the world, see a different side of the pond.
So you wound up having your own personal international affairs after studying it.
Yeah, well, I really kind of miss like all the international affairs stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, now that I'm in Europe, I'm like seeing all these jobs at IGOs, like
Mhm.
intergovernmental organizations and non-governmental organizations. where, like they actually kind of do need tech people. And
Yeah.
so if I could work for an IGO, that would be like my dreams of being an ambassador plus like my like skills like as a product designer.
Yeah.
That would be really cool. You actually get, if you work in an IGO, you get like diplomatic status.
Oh my
Like
God.
you don't actually belong to the country that you live in, for better
Oh,
or worse. Like I
yeah.
wouldn't get a lot of the benefits that a person living in France gets, but like you get treated quite well, and like you get kind of like this special status. You don't even get taxed by anyone because you like don't belong to any, because you don't work for like any particular country.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. So I like, I'm wondering if I can merge my interests somehow because I've never stopped being interested in international affairs.
Do you get health?
And oh, do you get healthcare?
If you get healthcare,
I'm
do
sure that you do.
Oh no. One second. There's a Wi-Fi outage on my side. So sorry about that. The
Oh,
Wi-Fi went out in my house. We've been having some
that's okay.
issues. Maybe we need a tech person in my house. I can't provide healthcare though.
I'm sure it'll write itself. Like the amount that tech people don't know is like staggering. Like I don't think that I know more about like a Wi-Fi network than anyone else.
That
Like
makes
you still have like an IT department like helping you with very simple tasks. And I don't know. One day we'll be old, we won't know how to do anything. I'm terrified.
Hopefully we won't have Zoom in 40 years. We'll beam things into our subconscious or some shit, which will be worse, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I've also had a obviously like you touched upon, I've had a really winding career. I also thought I was gonna be a lawyer, went into philosophy, etc. Um, but what I found really enjoyable about finishing my MFA is that it's also come very full circle for me. And a lot of my work is about philosophy and physics, which are two of the things that I'm really passionate about. And I think being an artist or having a creative mind sort of allows you to like find the puzzles and challenges that you're interested in and then like kind of make them work and find ways to like satisfy yourself. So I think that's really exciting that you're trying to figure out how to use the skills that you've developed over the last whatever decade, and then put them to use to one of your interests. I think it's nice too that you're touching upon the fact that like everyone sort of needs designers and creative people. Obviously, you do the more technical side of design, so you also have computer skills that a lot of artists and designers don't. But I think that sort of like creative element that you can bring to the table um, is getting slightly more and more like respected in like tech worlds, and I'm really excited to see how that continues to develop. Although maybe it won't with AI, who knows? Although you probably aren't replaceable with AI, the stuff that you do.
We'll see. I mean, I'm pretty excited to see like the direction that all this stuff is going to go. Just to address like the first point of like, all sorts of organizations need designers, need creative people. It's true, but it's also like when you look at, so like, I like moved out to San Francisco, which is kind of where product design first became a job. It became a job like in the 80s, and it became like a popular job in like the 2010s,
Yeah.
like when I was coming out of university. And so that's like, like a very cutting edge place, and you don't actually see that like around the world. And that's something I noticed like even just moving to France, and even living in Paris, where it's, it is a very modern like tech market, but still, with job trends, I think, and like job responsibilities, it's a different world, than San Francisco, and like what companies are looking for is a little different. And that's still, us talking about tech companies. But when you get to talking about like, governmental organizations and like international organizations, it's like they're way behind. I mean, because if you look at like, you're watching like C-SPAN and stuff, like the senators like talking about Facebook and all of that, like I don't think that it's like that bad
Yeah.
at a lot of other companies, but it is still like it kind of shows you that like when you're looking at like these higher up parts of government, it's not necessarily on the cutting edge. Like then they might need creative people, they might need designers, but they don't really know that.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot more that they could be doing, if they involved uh, some of those roles. But to go to the other part, talking about AI, it's like, hey, like these people aren't willing to like put up the money and the job posting and the hiring process and bring this person on board. But like, could AI do the job like half as well? Because I don't think that AI is going to be able to do like the exact same job as me. But I'm confident that even right now, I can do like 50% of my job.
Wow.
And like at that point, like, could it be helping out all of those like, governmental organizations? Like, could it help them because it's like, hey, there's like no cost. We just talk to the thing.
Yeah.
Just an idea.
That's scary to think about because I'm such an anti-AI person, and I, had my little soapbox in grad school and I was like, don't use it. But it is true that it's a somewhat free resource. And so like highlighting some of the benefits of it or like the ways in which it could be useful is sort of terrifying to me because I haven't thought about that at all. But you sort of make a compelling case that if you have a sort of like, you know, someone that has lower resources, whether it be an NGO or just like, maybe a school with fewer resources, it could be super useful. Um, damn, I don't want to think about that. I hate being
But
proven wrong in my own video series.
I mean, you're not wrong. Like, I don't like AI necessarily. I'm not embracing it. I'm also scared of it.
Yeah,
Like, I love reading like science fiction from like 60s, 70s, 80s, like Philip K. Dick and like all this like really scary stuff where it's like, oh my God, like this is gonna create like a cyberpunk dystopia.
yeah,
But like it is here. Like AI is here. It's not going away. Um, and I mean, depending on your field, like it's going to affect you more, it's going to affect you less. I think we as a society need to like adapt and, we need to understand that like AI is coming, and we need to like set ourselves up for that. Like if a bunch of people are about to become unemployed, we need to figure out like universal basic income like rather quickly. Um, so I don't know. I'm pessimistic about all that stuff, but I will say that like one thing I'm sure of is that like AI is going to get more and more powerful and be more and more part of our lives, and it's better to figure out like sooner than later how we integrate it into our lives
yeah.
responsibly.
That's a good way to think about it, to not turn away from it, but to like understand it so that not we can fight back, but that we can handle it. You touched a little bit upon some of the like philosophical and creative differences between like working in San Francisco and working in France. Could you maybe talk a little bit more about like your personal experience as a designer in those two countries? Because you're the first person I've talked to who's living abroad. So
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, I think design is something it's never like the first role that gets hired at an organization. It's always something that comes a little later, and it's always something that you get really different interpretations by different companies and different managers even about like what a designer is and what falls under your purview. So I think even just going to different startups in San Francisco, I've had like wildly different roles at each place, which keeps it really exciting and like keeps you learning new skills and trying to like see what's better or worse. I'd say specifically between France and the U.S. Um, the culture around tech companies, which I think like trickles down to design in a in a way, is that like in San Francisco, it's like if you're making a profit, you're doing it wrong. Like if you're making a profit, like you're like, oh, like why do you have all that money just sitting there? Like you should be using that money to like hire more people and like try to grow the product and like, we're not going to stop until we're like the biggest company. And then France, it's a super different approach. Companies are still like getting investment and stuff, but they're like trying to save a lot of money.
mhm.
Um, and of course, like a startup is still, they're going to start off red and then like gradually become profitable. But like, I think a lot more of the companies out here are profitable. And it shows you that that's like not necessarily better or worse,
Right.
because like in one way, their growth is really, really limited because they're not doing as much hiring. They're not taking as many risks. Like they're not going to like try something totally new, totally left field, which is like how a bunch of these American companies like came to be so big.
Right.
But at the same time, like you don't see them having the same layoffs that the American companies are going through right now. So it feels a lot more recession proof. And the way that trickles down to design is just that like I've found things to be like a little less risk taking here,
Hmm.
and also a lot more. And this is like super limited experience. I've only worked with one company here,
Yeah.
but I've also found things to be a lot more like process driven here, where it's like designers, you come in, you have, oh, that's my friend, so I have to buzz him.
That's good. I'm recording again. Hold on. Look at her. Look at her. Diamond. Oh my God. Guest
Diamond,
star of the day. Diamond, do you remember me?
Diamond,
She's like,
kitty.
maybe. She's like, maybe. Oh, hello. She's so sweet. Is Diamond a designer?
Yeah,
She's an
she's an UX
artiste.
designer.
She has a beret, so she must be an
Yeah, she
artist.
does. I'll put that on. I'll put that on for her.
Oh my
She
God.
hates it. She doesn't like to wear it.
She's a dog, I
Why are
guess.
you wearing my beret?
This is the best intermission we've had yet. This is great.
There. Where? Where? It's her beret.
Oh my goodness. So good, so talented. Does Diamond speak French now?
Yeah, well, as much as she speaks English, at least.
That's pretty good. She knows all the
Yeah,
commands.
doesn't know too many words.
That's okay.
Doesn't
Neither do
matter.
I. I don't know any French, so
Uh, Here, Diamond can.
she can come back or not come back. We're recording again. So, we were talking about, oh, hello. We were talking about how sort of tech philosophy trickles down to design in France and how you're taking fewer risks. It sounds like, I don't know. I don't want to make any generalizations because I've never lived in France, even though I was going to go to art school there for a year. Um, it sounds
Really
like,
sad you didn't.
I
I
know,
thought we were gonna be living here. Like,
I
here.
know. I'm sorry. We'll see. I might get there eventually. I might actually move to Ireland. That would be the long-term goal. So, and then you're a hop and a skipping away from that. Um, I'm sort of wondering if culturally the like slower life pace, like, daily grocery run, like all of those changes you think have anything to do with design philosophy or like art philosophy. Paris is obviously an incredibly artistic city. Like, do you just think your quality of life has gotten different in any ways? Or I don't know. It's a dumb question.
Um, so I would say that for one, everything I'm saying is like my experience, and I've been living here for 7 months.
Yeah.
And so it hasn't really been that long, but I wouldn't say it's like a giant lifestyle shift for me.
Hmm.
I think depending on where you're coming from, it might be.
Totally.
So like I did grow up in Georgia, like in the southeast and like in the suburbs of a big city, and I went to college in a small town, and I moved to San Francisco, and that was a really, really big change for me. But like San Francisco to Paris, like it is a big change, but like when it comes to like livability and like that kind of thing, like when it comes to like walking around and in San Francisco, we also did daily grocery runs.
Yeah.
We also walked and biked everywhere. We also like worked from home or worked like from a little office. And so and like also there I was like kind of starting over. like meeting new people, and so it's kind of the same here. There are big things, but like the biggest thing is just like I'm not great at the French language. But that's really a me problem.
Yeah,
Um,
you're getting
and
there.
though I
Pretty good
will
when I
say
visited,
like
but I'm not the greatest test of that because I don't speak the language. But you seem confident
thanks.
in your ability to get around and everything.
Yeah, I think I'm doing pretty well. But I also think I came in with a lot of notions about like France, like work-life balance is amazing and all this kind of stuff. And I haven't really found that to be true.
Okay.
I think this is also like talking specifically about tech in Paris, but like people in Paris are kind of known for actually working a lot.
Yeah.
Like the normal work day here is actually 9:30 to 6:30, which is an hour longer than the US workday.
Yeah.
And I know everyone's gonna bring up that you have like a long lunch, and that's true, but like you're not expected to do any less work. And so it's like I wound up working during lunch a lot of the time,
Yeah.
along with a lot of like my French coworkers working through lunch.
Mm.
And there's also a lot of you have to do like after work events, that kind of thing. And honestly, like I just wouldn't say that it's any better or worse than like US work-life balance. But again, that's just talking about tech, where I feel like tech in the US is famously one of like the most relaxed.
Yeah.
And I would say tech in Paris is like famously one of the most stressful. And so it's like you take the most stressful French job and compare it to like not the least stressful, but a less stressful US job, and
Yeah.
you get about the same.
That's super interesting to think about. We're towards not at the end, but towards the end. I really wanted to talk to you about community building because that's one of the things that you in particular are so good at. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about game nights and collage nights and the parties that you threw in San Francisco, and sort of how you naturally are such a good communal person and like great at teaching and great at like bringing people together and sort of how that's what that's like. That you're kind of an idol to me in that regard because I'm obviously trying to do something similar with the podcast in that way. So if you could talk about that.
Oh, thanks. I mean, it's really nice to hear that. But yeah, I mean, I think a community, it's not just me, right? And like it requires a bunch of people.
Yeah.
I have done a lot of different community building really throughout my life. I felt like I've always been kind of just a person who is a bridge between other people. I don't really know when that first happened exactly. Maybe it's because I switched school districts when I was a kid. I like switched school districts after seventh grade. And so it's like I'm having to like balance like two totally different friend groups, like from this county and from that county. Um, and I'm like trying, and I like always just enjoyed bringing people together. I enjoyed like meeting someone at this school and then being like, oh, you would love this person. And so it kind of built from there. Like I actually started a tabletop gaming club as well, like in high school.
Mm.
So that was like some early community building. But just with anything, I've mainly started it with like I talk to people and they're interested. I've never like built something from zero. It's more like I'll have like different friends and people in different social groups who are asking me like, "Hey, let's do a board game night," and that's what happened in San Francisco. I like over the course of like a year, and I think during COVID, I had like so many people wanted to play board games. I'm like massively into board games, and this is like a famously social hobby. Like it actually requires other people to play. Um, and it's just really nice way to like both meet people, but also like do something that you're gonna enjoy. Um, and board game also gives you something to talk about. It's like a shared interest, whatever's happening on the table. So like I had a lot of people asking me about that. I just one day was like, okay, everybody, like I'm doing that at my house. We had like 40 people. We had people in the backyard
My
in
God.
San Francisco, like on different like tables. We had people like sitting on my bed, like playing unmatched on my bed. We had people playing on the coffee table. It was really awesome, and it also was not necessarily sustainable. So it's like after that, and like even after parties and stuff I do now, I did like a post-mortem, which is, I don't think I always use that term, like,
Yeah.
but until I got into like tech, it's like you're always just thinking about like, how can I improve this?
Yeah.
How can I like do better next time? And so it's like we started having it at different bars. We're like hopping around between different bars. We started I started like an Instagram and stuff to like organize that game night. So it's like at first it's like we had like 40 people. We probably went down to like 10, and then like maybe eventually got back up to like 25 or something. But it's like I did all of that through, I don't even know. I mean, I guess so many things, like making an Instagram where like people can see it, making sure everyone knows it's like everyone's invited. This isn't just a friends thing. Um, I like found a bar where my partner like was friends with the bartender, Dane at the Sycamore, and we started doing these like weekly board game nights there. So we like took what we were doing in all these disparate locations, started doing it just at the Sycamore, and every single week at a consistent time, and like that really helped it grow to be quite big. That's how I met Teddy, who walked in during the part of this was probably cut out. It's how I met a lot of other friends too. Having my partner Michelle to help me with that was also like really, really big, because she really inspired me to make it like this is like, a regular thing and like something that we can really make big. So I would say it was a massive, massive success, but at the same time, also a huge failure of mine, because I knew I was moving to Paris for like a few months before I moved, visa processing, blah, blah, blah. And I was like doing everything I could to try to make this club continue to exist. And today it doesn't really. And
Uh,
so it's really a bummer. Like I wanted it, I feel like it's, I appreciate like you saying that you like look up to me as a community builder, but at the same time, when like one person is a community builder, it's like a cult of personality.
yeah.
And like when I stopped going, like even though I appointed people to like take my stead and stuff, it's like ultimately they weren't maybe as passionate about the project. And then like some of my friends who were maybe like more the core group stopped coming. And so yeah, it's kind of a failure. And I really wish it ran for a year, and it was amazing, but like I really, really wish that I could have kept that alive.
Yeah.
And same for other things I've started. Like I did start like a collage. I have done like some collage workshops, but those were always like very disparate. And again, more like people are like, hey, I'm interested in collage. And so then I would just like bring a lot of materials, make something happen. Um, but yeah, actually getting something that's like regular in a community that exists without you is tough. And it crosses over into my personal relationships as well, where it's like I, as like a bridge between friend groups, like sometimes I go and hang out with some friends, like I'll go back to Georgia, bring all my friends together, and they'll be like, oh yeah, like we haven't seen each other in like a year, like since you were last year. I'm like,
Uh,
you guys love each other. You like complain to me that you don't have people to play board games with. It's like this guy lives right by you. Like so like there's just something, like there's something I haven't cracked yet.
mhm,
uh, and maybe what's interesting is that like I really want to crack it. Like I really want to like make these things that like actually don't really have to do with me.
mhm.
But I haven't gotten there yet.
Well, when you do, tell me, because that's sort of how I feel about this. I never want to stop doing this, but I also don't want it to just be my cult of personality, because I'm not interested in that. So, with that, we're actually at the end. Thank you so much for doing this. It's amazing. I know there's a time difference. You're super busy. You're doing a bunch of different things that I find really exciting. And it's been way too long. So, hopefully, I'm back in Paris or you're back in California sometime soon, and we can hang out. I'm also going to bother you to do a group lecture soon. So look forward to that.
Yeah, that would be really awesome. I actually am really interested in like free schools as well. I was part of like Noise Bridge in San
Mm.
Francisco, and then we also had an Athens free school in Georgia
Oh my
where I
God.
taught some classes. So like I really love the idea, and happy that someone's resurrecting it for this age.
Amazing. Thank you.